The Supreme Court is allowing the Trump administration to resume sweeping immigration enforcement stops in Los Angeles as part of the president's campaign to carry out mass deportations of people in the U.S. unlawfully. So I want to bring in CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez, who is following the story for us. Camilo, thank you for your time. Can you break down the ruling by the High Court?
Good morning, Mugo. The Supreme Court has given the Trump administration yet another legal victory on immigration and its efforts to carry out what the president has promised will be the largest deportation operation in American history. The High Court, through this ruling, is suspending a lower court order from July from a federal judge in the California area that had prohibited federal immigration officials in that region of the country from conducting what advocates called roving immigration arrests that relied on certain factors such as somebody's race or ethnicity, the fact that they were speaking Spanish or English with an accent. That order had required Border Patrol and ICE officials to have reasonable suspicion that somebody is in the country illegally before moving to deport them, and it blocked officials from relying on four factors during these operations: somebody's race and ethnicity, the fact that they were speaking Spanish, as I said, or English with an accent, their occupation as a day laborer, for example, or their presence in a location like a Home Depot parking lot. And of course, we have seen in Southern California over the past months really controversial immigration raids, including at Home Depots, that advocates say have been indiscriminate in nature. The Supreme Court is allowing those operations for the time being to continue, but I should underscore, Mugo, that the minority of the court issued a scathing opinion authored by Justice Sotomayor. She said, and I quote, "The decision is yet another grave misuse of our emergency docket. We should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work in a low-wage job." So clearly, this is a really divided court, but for now, it's yet another legal victory for the Trump administration's mass deportation campaign.
Yeah, it sure is. And let's stay on the topic of raids here, because South Korea says it has reached a deal with the U.S. to release more than 300 workers that were detained during an immigration enforcement raid at a Hyundai plant in Georgia. So what are the details of this agreement, and what happens next when it comes to those workers who were detained?
Well, Mugo, as we discussed last week, this was the largest single-site enforcement operation at a work site for Homeland Security investigations, and 475 workers suspected of living and working in the U.S. illegally were detained by immigration authorities and state officials helping those federal agents. We understand that more than 300 of those 475 workers who were detained were nationals of Korea. Now we understand that the government of South Korea, as part of a bilateral agreement with the Trump administration, has agreed to send a charter flight here to the U.S. to pick up those workers so they can return voluntarily to South Korea. That would avoid the legal deportation process that could involve civil penalties, Mugo, and that could exile these workers from the U.S. for up to 10 years. So this could be a more diplomatic way in the eyes of South Korea to handle the situation. It also avoids having their citizens remain in ICE custody indefinitely, Mugo.
Okay, Camilo Montoya-Galvez, thank you so much for your reporting, as always. Appreciate it. CBS News took a closer look at where the nation stands on the deployment of National Guard troops in Washington, D.C. and other cities. Our polling team broke it down by party. 85% of Republicans, they say they favor the move, compared to 93% of Democrats who oppose it. A majority of independent voters, well, they also oppose the deployment. Then look at some of the hypotheticals here, because CBS News asked how Americans would feel if the president deployed troops in their local neighborhoods. 61% of people say they would not approve of that. We also asked if the deployment of National Guard troops affects the rights and freedoms of American citizens. 54% of people in favor of the deployment say their rights feel more secure, and that's compared to 64% of people who oppose the deployment saying their rights are less secure.